All right, everybody, welcome to week 7. Things are just moving along so fast. We are in the second to last week of our course, and wow, we have gotten a lot done. So this week we're talking about polishing a game. So in software development, when we're building a game, we are call it the development phase. This is the phase where we're saying what features do we want to build? Like we want to be able to control a player, we want them to be able to score a goal, we want to give the user some feedback. And once we have all of that pretty much more or less functioning, then we say we have a working game, a working prototype. And a lot of times, or in game development, that typically is the alpha stage. So if you've ever played a game or other software that's called alpha or beta, that means that the game is functional, but it may have some bugs and it may not have all of the polish that you would want to. And by polish, we mean just things looking a little bit better. So what I have done is I added a little polish to my game by adding this little background and some of the assets that I had sent to you guys last week, including these stadium lights. So we're getting a little, and also a grass texture that's a little more realistic. Because if you remember, I had just a basic green field. So this is where we're adding polish to the game, taking what might have been like a just a placeholder cube that was in our level and actually making it into a box or something that's more than just a white square. Okay. So we are going to be working on that this week. And tonight or today's focus is going to be on audio. So if you recall, when I play the game, and I'm just going to go right down here, hopefully I can score, that the only audio we have in the game is that is the score. Okay. And that is triggered through our goal blueprint. So if you remember, if we open that back up, then when we overlap with the soccer ball, remember we did this part so that only the soccer ball can cause this to happen. Then we have our keeping score. We add 1 to whatever the current score is. And we have this play sound 2D. So this is an event-based sound. But what if we wanted to do something that's more ambient or looping? Like, for instance, maybe we want to have some music in the game to get the players' adrenaline pumping. Maybe we want to have some ambient outside noises. All of these contribute to the immersion of the game. Every game you've probably played that's like a 3D or third person game has some combination, if not all of those. So, what we're going to do in this session is we're going to add music and some ambient outdoor noise or sounds. So, just like we did last week with Fab, I want to show you a resource that you can use to add not only sound and music, but also images and some other things. And if you haven't used it before, it's called Pixabay, Pixabay. And as it says here, it's got millions of free stuff that you can use. It's royalty free. It's usually nice to credit the authors of the content in your games or whatever projects that you include them on, but you don't have to. So in Pixabay, we've got images, photos, illustrations, vectors, which are things like this, which are drawings typically done in a software like Adobe Illustrator. It's even got free videos where you can have looping videos. This is really cool if you do like web work or marketing work and you need some looping videos like on a website. But what we're interested in tonight is music and sound effects. And I'm going to create a plan for what I want. So I'm thinking I want to have a crowd cheer when the goal is scored, in addition to the whistle. I want to have some ambient outdoor sounds, and I want to have a music. So I would start here with the first one, just go to sound effects and maybe crowd cheer, press enter, and you could preview all of these sounds. Ooh, that was loud. They're some of them can be really loud, so I'll turn this down a little bit to about halfway there. And I'm not going to go play all of these, but you get the idea. And then right over here, you can download. And on Pixabay, it downloads the files as an MP3 file. Now, I'm not sure how much you guys are familiar with different audio formats, but an MP3 is a compressed file, kind of like a JPEG is a compressed image file. And unfortunately, those won't work with Unreal Engine. So we have to convert them to WAV files, which you can do with any free audio editor. And if you need one of those, I recommend Ocen Audio, OCEN. It is a cross-platform, free, open source audio editor. And that's how you can convert MP3s to WAV. But we won't get into that now. So I've already downloaded, I picked before we had our session, a crowd cheering sound. So I'm going to go and import that to the game. So we already have a folder here for sound or for audio. So I'm going to just right click, import to current folder. And then on my desktop, I have a crowd sound. So I'll just open that. And as easy as that, here's my sound. If I click or if I hover over it and click this play button here, it should be able to preview it. Okay. All right. So the way that I want to add this is I want this to play when a goal is scored. So all I need to do is I'm going to go back here to my goal blueprint. Go ahead and do a quick compile, save, and save all. And I am just going to play this right after this is triggered. Okay. So let's just duplicate this. That's the easiest. I'll do Control C to copy, Control V to paste. You can also right click on the node and do duplicate. And of course, you could always just drag out the executable pen and search for Play Sound 2D. But we're just going to use the this right here. So I'm going to connect these up. And with this drop down, I should have a list of all the audio in my project, which I do. And I'm just going to select the crowd one. All right, compile and save. And let me do a little housekeeping item here real quick so that we don't have any issues with our Zoom performance. I'm going to set this to below normal. Okay. Another thing I've learned in this class is that on some computers, you're running Unreal while you're screen sharing in Zoom can just grind your computer to a halt, even if it's a high-end PC. Okay, so let's test that out. And for the time being, I'm gonna actually, and this is the thing we do a lot in testing too, rather than have to deal with these AI guys chasing me when I'm just trying to test out audio, I'm just gonna take this goal, hold down the Alt key, and I'm gonna make a copy of it, put it on the other side of the field, turn it around, I like it to be perfectly 180, so I'm just going to type that in here. And then I'm going to grab my player start, which I can't really see too well, but if I go to my outliner, type player start, I can click on it, and remember, we can press F to zoom right in there. And I am going to turn that around and move it like right in front of that goal there. And then I'm also going to take some of these soccer balls and just put them over there. So that's the way we can test the audio without having to compete against the AI. I'm just going to put it right in front of the goal. Can't miss. A couple of these. Okay. I'll turn G. The flickering here is the G toggles your indicators on and off, like your transform, your widget, this grid here. So we can turn that off. And now I'm going to press play. Okay, there's all those guys back there waiting for me, but I just want to see if this is going to work. Okay. So it works, but I can tell that it is really loud. And the whistle was loud too. So let's take a look at these audio objects in Unreal Engine. Let's open up the whistle. Okay. And right here, you see volume. So this is basically 100% volume. If you've ever watched a movie or played a game, you probably noticed that there's a mix, like what's called an audio mix, where not every sound is playing at 100%, but some sounds are playing at 20%, maybe 30%. If you play everything at 100%, pretty soon it's going to be way too loud. And this, especially with the music, when you bring that in, if I had brought the music in here and hooked that up, you wouldn't even be able to hear these sound effects. So I am going to go and just change this to 0.35, which would be like 35%. This is for the whistle. Some other things here, you could change the pitch. Of course, we don't need to do that. And I'll save that. There's also the looping, which we will look at before we finish up today. And I'm going to take this crowd and I am going to, where did the volume go? There it is. I'm also going to change that to 0.35. Save that up, close it down, and just give it a quick test. Make sure it's not quite so loud like it was before. Okay. All right. So that's looking good. Okay. So next up is music. No, actually, I think we should do like ambient just to see some like outdoorsy sound. So again, we'll go back here, and this is just to show you a little bit of my workflow when I'm doing audio research. I'm not going to play all these, but I'll say ambient outdoors. Usually these files will be longer in size, and that's good because you don't want to hear an ambient sound and you can tell where it starts to repeat, which happens if they're really short. So I usually like to get one that's around a minute or two. There's an ambient steamer boiler. Ocean ones are always fun. Spring forest. Ooh, that is loud. Okay. But like I said, I've already got one. So I'm going to switch back over to my project here. And we're going to work in the level blueprint. So every level, that means your map, right, has its own blueprint. And these are things that happen when the map starts. So if you remember when we had our like our goal, this happens when the ball overlaps the net mesh. And let's pull up another one. Let's look at our AI character. Okay, so this happens, the move to where we're chasing the player, when the AI wanderer sees our pawn or our character. Similarly, a level map is stuff that happens when you first load the level. So as you might be thinking, this would probably be a really good place to load our audio that's going to play when the game starts. So we'll go here. This is next to this white cube that we've used a lot. And we're going to go to Open Level Blueprint. And we already did earlier create some things here. So this is where we created our user interface, right? That has the clock and it has the current score. So this is where we did that. So why don't we say right after that, let's also do another play sound 2D. And go ahead and compile and save. Leave that open. I'm going to come back here and import. I haven't done that yet. So we'll right click, import to current folder, and here's my ambient. And there it is. And this is actually, I think it's kids playing soccer. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So we'll go here and now drop down ambient. So it's when we load the level, it's going to load our UI and then it's going to play that ambient. Now, if you remember when we opened up the other audio files, there was a loop option. So I'm going to actually enable that for this file. So looping means in audio that when it gets to the end, it's going to immediately go back to the beginning and just play continuously. And I'm also going to set this to be, we'll do 0.35 again. You just kind of play around with these values until things feel right. And speaking of feeling right, if I were having a soccer practice field, which would have coaches and maybe some more players, maybe a couple people in these bleachers here, which I found on Fab for free, by the way, you wouldn't have that level of crowd sound when somebody scores a goal. That sounds like there's, 5 or 10,000 people in there. But I just wanted a quick example to show how we hooked that up. But if I wanted to make that more realistic, I would search for a sound where it was just like maybe their teammates clapping. Okay, let's test that out. So we should be able to play the game, hear our ambient sounds as we run around the field, have a whistle blow and a cheer when we score a goal. Okay, so far so good. I can hear the ambience. Okay. And let's see how the mix sounds. There we go. And I've got that same issue with the ball sometimes goes through the net. So I'd have to take a look at the collision on that. That sounds pretty good. I might say that the crowd is still a little loud. So I would go here and maybe change that actually down to 0.2. But yeah, now we've got a little ambience, right? So before when we played our game, it was just total silence and then we had the one whistle click. But now it's being a lot more realistic and immersive because we could feel like, hey, this does kind of feel like a soccer field. I can hear birds chirping, I can hear kids playing, I can hear adults, I can hear kick sounds. So that's very important to add a layer of realism and immersion in the game. And let me just look back here. So, yep, for the sorry, I missed this. It has to be the wave. Um, but, again, for just basic sounds like what we're hearing, the difference if you upscale the MP3s is not very noticeable. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add some music. And again, I will go back over here to Pixabay. And now we want to make sure instead of a sound effect, we're actually doing music. So you can change it up here, but I'm going to just go back to the main page. And here you've got music. And again, this has already some really cool categories that you could pick from. What I did was like sports, and you get all kinds of different styles. It's funny thinking about some of these at a soccer game. Like, I don't know that one would work. So again, I've downloaded one, and I did not spend a whole lot of time. It's not probably the best sound in the world, but it's, again, to give you an example of how we can do this in Unreal Engine. So I'm going to flip back to my game. I'm going to go to my audio folder, right click, import to current folder, and I'm going to do music. And I know the music is always going to be loud, so I'm going to immediately open that up and change the volume to 0.15. Okay, save it. And we'll just preview it here. Okay, that's cool. And so now I think we are ready to go. Oh, we have to do one more thing. Anybody remember what? We've got to add it over here. So we will add, let's duplicate this. Okay. And then this is going to be music. Okay, compile, save. Let's take a look. All right. And that's, again, I told you how loud the music just always seems to be. I'm going to take that down to about, where did the volume go? Did I collapse it? Yeah. I'm going to take this down to 0.1. Okay. And again, I need to hit this looping so that it'll continuously play. And let's just try it out one more time. I'll do it in the full screen here. Okay. I'll go and run down here, see if I can score on the AI guys. Remember, we got the shift key that gives me a speed boost. It's helpful. Oop. Ooh. Well, that didn't work, so I'm going to go down to the easy level again. All right. So that is the beginning of our polish week, where we are going to add some things to our game. And if you want to know how I added this background, this is called a HDRI backdrop. And there's sites online where you can find free HDRI images, which are if you've ever worked with image editing, your camera is this big kind of panoramic landscape is what essentially is the image. So the way that you get this in here is you have to add a certain Unreal Engine plugin, which we haven't gone over yet. So let me do that real quick before we finish up. If you go up to your Edit menu and you'll see Plugins, these are all different plugins that add additional functionality to Unreal Engine. Just like if you've used Visual Studio Code or JetBrains, there's extensions you can add. If you've ever done web design, there's plugins like if you use WordPress. So it's the same sort of thought process here. And some of these are in beta. So it shouldn't bother us for what we're doing, but obviously you would want to be careful if you were trying to ship an actual game or project to not use a beta. But we are looking for instance, a fun one to play around with is water, where you can basically drag oceans and lakes into your game. And you'll notice as I added those, it said I have to restart. So you do have to restart the editor once you add those. And the one that I had used was just called HDRI Backdrop. And you click on it there, and then you restart, and usually it's a pretty fast restart. All right, well, we are coming up on not having a whole lot of time left in our call. So to recap, Pixabay is a great resource. Obviously, it's not the only resource, but it's a great resource for royalty-free music, sound effects, images, and lots of other things. And we also did a little work on our uh, level, especially our level blueprint, where we added the looping sound in the music. We also added an event-based sound using the crowd sound when we scored the goal. And we are also going to look at adding custom fonts to our menus this week, or to our interface, and also creating a main menu for the game. And with that HDRI, now you can see that you can add it by going to add all, place all actors, and then you scroll down and HDRI should be there. And let's see the water. I think the water should be there too. So let's add a little lake. This probably, there you go. So you can also use the water plugin to add water to your games. All right, so let's wrap it up. Anybody have any questions? All right, I will see everybody on tomorrow then. Have a great rest of the day and rest of your evening. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Bye, guys.